Hey everybody, how's it going? Before I get into this video, I wanted to say something. I just want to say rest in peace to E.J. Wells. He was the owner and perfumer for the house, one of my favorite indie cologne houses, Happy Land Studios. I'm wearing Happy Land Signature today, which is my favorite scent of his. He's a really nice guy, probably the best customer service in the business, and his scents are really good. So yeah, it's just a shame. His company will still live on, though. From what I've heard, some people are going to keep it going. So that's great that that can keep going. I just wanted to say that because, you know, it happened today, unfortunately. So today I'm going to talk about Revival. I think I'm going to do individual book reviews. I think that that was fun. I've done like a couple in the past weeks or so, and I like doing it. So unless the book is like, you know, a really crappy book or something. But so yeah, I read Revival by Stephen King. This came out in 2014. Never read it. I frankly haven't read a lot of newer King. I've read a lot of the classics, and he really got me into reading. I've done a few Stephen King videos on this channel, um, but I haven't really read the new stuff too much. I've read, honestly, I think I've only read like Mr. Mercedes and now this. I don't think I've read anything that would be considered newer. I read a little bit of If It Bleeds, and I didn't really care for it. I think I don't really care for the newer stuff too much. This book was smoking. This book was really good. Now, was it like the best book I ever read? No, because, you know, when I open this book up, and it's kind of a double-edged sword, like, and this is frankly just because I've been reading like a lot of heavy literature lately. But you know, I'm reading this book and I'm like, it's a little his prose is like a little cheesy sometimes to me, but at the same time, it feels like, that's the Stephen King I know. You know what I mean? I grew up reading this, and so it was nice to get back to reading King, and it makes me want to go and read more. And as a matter of fact, I think for October, my big book I'm going to read is going to be It, which I've read. Although I've read like half of it once, and then I read it pretty much all the way through, like maybe 6 years ago. So I'm looking forward to reading that one. I'm going to read some other ones. I'll talk about my October TBR soon. But yeah. Anyways, though, man, this was great. Like really fantastic. This is a book, and this is no spoilers here. I will do spoilers at the end, but I'll give you a huge warning. So if you've never read this book before, it's basically about this character named Jamie Morton, I believe. Jamie Morton. Um, Sometimes I'll read a book and I'll love the book and I'll forget some characters' names. But yeah, Jamie Morton. This is a book that takes place from his childhood all the way till adulthood, and it's kind of almost like it's like an autobiography of this character. But it's like a memoir novel, you know, like the life and times of, and it's told in a cool way. Not that it's a completely unique way, but it's more. I think this is one of his more literary books because the story is not really told in a traditional like, what's the plot about? You know, it's just scenes from his life and the characters he meets. It's basically like he meets this preacher character, um, when he's a child, and he forms this sort of relationship with this preacher character that shows up at various points in his life, and you know it's a hard book to talk about without spoiling things because there are like so many plot points that are like that form the basis of the plot that it's hard to spoil them, and that's what I found unique about the book is how it's a very slow paced, it's not incredibly slow paced, but it's a slower paced novel that is kind of, you always just feel it's building towards something. And there's a lot of thematic work in this book. Of course, King always touches on things, but I feel like as he gets older, like although I'm not the biggest fan of his newer stuff, I think he gets more mature in what he tackles. And this book tackles very mature subject matters like death and getting old and addictions and some more, I should say, bleak topics such as like the meaning of life or the futility of life, the purpose of things. It really gets into really dark topics and heavy topics that I wasn't really expecting King to get into, and it's all done pretty well. Like again, like I said at the beginning, this isn't a masterpiece or anything, but it's a damn good story that's well put together. There's a lot of little aha moments in this book. I know people that don't like this book. I think I could say I would see it as people that don't really like literary fiction style where it's more focused on character development and themes, because the plot is so slow going, and because the plot is told through like it's like looking at scenes in a play almost, going through his life. I feel like maybe some people will be like, "What's the point? Like, what is this? What is exactly the plot? Though, where is this going? What's It's just the showing me the life of this guy." But damn, it really like all comes together, and that's what makes this book great. So that's all I really can say about this book without spoiling. I'm sure other people have probably put it better than me and more succinctly, I'm sure. But it's one of those ones that you just got to read it. It's one of his darkest books he's ever written. It's kind of like a holy shit, I didn't really think he had that in him kind of books. Not that he hasn't written about some crazy things, but this one is like a gut punch of a book. So it's just a damn good read. I really suggest it. I think that was enough to determine if you think you'd like it or not. Let me just do some quick spoilers. So if you haven't read this, stay away and really like get the fuck out of here right now. You don't want to hear this. Okay. So the ending of this book is incredibly good. It's so good. And King is known for kind of blowing the endings of his books. Of course, he's written some great endings over the years, right? But he has a tendency to falter, and not just falter like, oh, that ending wasn't that great. Like he blows it, like something ridiculous, like a Deus Ex Machina nonsense kind of ending. This ending is so good. Basically, the character, and of course, I'm assuming that if you're at this point, you've read the book too. So I'm kind of speaking, on my thoughts about things. But the character of Charles Jacobs, or Charlie as we come to know him, it goes by some other names as well. Such an interesting character. Now, of course, the ending of this book, the whole time this book is going on, basically Charles is doing these sort of he's obsessed with this electricity. It's a huge theme in the book. And he does these experiments that like cure people of their illnesses and things like that. And he does one on Jamie and cures him of his heroin addiction. And he does one on Jamie's brother, Khan, and cures him of a lost voice because he got hit in the throat with a ski pole. And many, many others throughout the years. He ends up becoming a revival tent, preacher, healing people with his electricity gadgets and everything. And all of these have after effects, like people die, or one guy sees prismatic colors. Jamie occasionally has these very strange sleepwalking episodes where he's like having like seizure-like episodes and like stabbing his arm with forks and mumbling, saying something happened over and over. It's very odd. So that it's like sinister. And when Jacobs shows up, I should just call him Charlie. When Charlie shows up at the beginning of the book, you kind of know he's going to be a villain all the way through. But the thing is, like, I find them a fascinating character. Now Jamie's a cool character too, and I love the backstory of him being a guitarist, because I'm a guitarist, so that was cool. And Stephen King's got his guitar picture, right? So I will say, as a guitarist, I kind of cringe sometimes when I read that stuff in books because it's like wrong, or it's just wrong enough where it's off. But Stephen King did a good job with all of the guitar descriptions of chords and stuff without coming off like too hokey. So I can tell that he plays some guitar, I mean, of course he does. He's got it in the picture, but I can tell he knows probably his cowboy chords and stuff. He even cracks a couple jokes I thought were like inside jokes. He makes a joke about playing an F bar chord or something is hard. Like that's one of the big roadblocks to beginner guitarists. So I thought that was cool. But I was very fascinated by Charlie as a character. When you get to the end of this book, it's almost like a twist ending in a way that he was really like doing all of this so that he could basically he used this like forbidden text that the Catholic Church had banished a long time ago, and he was trying to essentially like revive a corpse, not to like bring them to life in a Frankenstein style, but to basically see through them like the veil, like behind the veil of what the universe really is, and hopefully in doing so be able to talk to his deceased wife and kids, because his wife and child, his young 2-year-old son, I believe he was 2, got in a horrible car accident and died. So that's like what he was doing. So you can look at it as, well, it's a double-edged sword. It's, people die because of him. These people that he heals die. They kill other people. They kill themselves. Horrible things happen. So there are these after effects of doing these healing procedures is villainous. But he was doing it because he really wanted to talk to his family. And it's like, if I was in that situation and that was my solution, I probably would do that too. Like, if were that desperate. It's one of those things. Of course, this is fiction, and like, hopefully, goddamn, it's fiction. But yeah, it's a tough like balance there. But then when you find out that the end of the book is that the afterlife is not heaven or hell, the afterlife is like everybody is basically a slave that's being driven around in this hellish world by these giant ant-like creatures that are subservient to this higher god called the Mother. That is like, it's very Lovecraftian and it's freaky. And I saw some people, they got to the end and they were like, this sucks, like fucking ants. And it's like, the ants aren't the point. They are not the point. The point isn't giant ant-like creatures and like, whoa, what a crazy ending. It's more the absolute existential bleakness of, when you die, you will be tortured for eternity, no matter what. And that's a scary thing, and that makes the book instantly take a dark turn because it changes everything, the way that you thought about the book. All of these characters that died are now being tortured. Charlie himself dies from a stroke like right after all this occurs, and boom, now he's there. And then like our main character Jamie, his one of his brothers ends up killing his husband and getting put in a mental institution. And also, that Jamie himself has been cured and having these after effects, and that he's likely probably the way I saw it was probably going to go kill his brother Terry or something along those lines, and that he's going there too. So it really is like a holy shit kind of ending. To me, I thought it was a great ending. Now, I love cosmic horror and stuff like that. I mean, I just read Annihilation. I did a review on that if you want to see. But so I could see, like, if you are totally not into that or have never experienced that, for that to be a bit of a strange ending. But I mean, really, like, the implications of that ending to me were huge. It really made me go back and think about a lot of things. There's a lot of great themes in this book that he plays around with, that have a lot of layers to them, and a lot of cool things to think about. I thought about this book a lot after I read it. One thing I found particularly interesting was basically how the main jumping off point of the book that really kicks things into gear is the car accident. And, Charlie goes into church and gives the terrible sermon, and basically denounces God in front of the entire church and loses his job and is kicked out of town. And it's interesting. It's like, did he lose his faith because he keeps on to the faith of a sacred text, the whole story, right? Like, that's what he's doing behind the scenes. Yeah, it's just interesting. There's like a lot of different ways to look at everything, but there's no doubt about it that the ending is incredibly bleak. So I loved the ending, and I was telling my friend after I read this, I'm like, I want to go back and read some other King. I'm going to read it, like I said, but I was really thinking back, like, I wonder what I could read again that I've read that's a cool read. And then I thought, I'm like, man, I don't think any of them had an ending as good as this. This might be my favorite ending he's ever written. I don't think it's my favorite Stephen King book. It's great, but that ending is probably his best, in my opinion. That comes to mind right now. So yeah, that really like blew me away. I knew the ending was going to be good because a lot of people had said, oh, it's got a great ending, but I really wasn't prepared for that and the implications of everything and how incredibly morbid and very existential. It was very cool. So I mean, this is spoilers. I hope you've read this, but yeah, of course, I highly, highly recommend this. I should have talked about this at the beginning. I might put a tag in or something, but it doesn't really matter. But I always like to talk about the actual make of the book, the quality. This is like a particular style of paperback I see a lot now. A lot of King's books are published like this. A lot of books are. It's hard to explain. Let me get like Tender as the Flesh, a great paperback. I've already showed this off, but this has got the little flaps on it and everything. and it makes it feel sturdy. It's got nice paper. It opens to a degree where you can read it easily. It feels like, it will hold up on my shelf to many rereads. I don't expect paperbacks to last forever like hardcovers, but these fucking things, man, if you've seen them, you know them. They're matte finish. They have this weird line where when you open it, that's where the binding kind of breaks, and the paper is always too thick, so it's stiff. And that's the best way I could describe these style of paperbacks. They're very stiff, and you can't ever like open the book enough to not feel like you're gonna just totally break the spine and the pages are gonna fall out, so that you can read without having, like the page, like the text is always in the gutter to me is what I'm saying. I hate these paperbacks, and as a matter of fact, I'll show it real quick, but Beloved, this actually is a much higher quality paperback than this. It doesn't have the weirdness, but it has the same binding issue where it's actually worse. That's like what the binding is like, so their text is always in the gutter, and to actually see it, you have to like apply a decent amount of pressure, and it never lays flat, and then it just closes on you. It's a pain in the ass. But what are you gonna do, right? Anyways, that's all. Sorry I gushed so much about that, but I just really, really like that. I was gonna save it for October, and I couldn't wait. I really couldn't. So, yeah. So anyways, coming soon, I'm currently reading Beloved by Toni Morrison. I'm like, I don't know, like a quarter of the way through the book. It's very good so far. And after that, I'm not exactly sure, but I'll do my TBR for October, all my scary reads. It is one of them, as I said. And I have some Blu-ray reviews and stuff coming soon, too. So, yeah, everybody, let me know what you've been up to, as always. Let me know if you've read this book. I would love to talk about this one. Of all the books I've read, great books, like Tender is the Flesh, Annihilation. Everything I've read lately has been great, but this one in particular, man, it just was great. I loved it. So, peace.